The man gnashed his teeth, incredibly resentful, merely for abusing his wife. He found himself seized by this community consisting only of women. Meanwhile, Helen walked behind with an indifferent expression, feeling that the true purpose of establishing her charitable sisterhood was revealed here, to rescue women harmed by men. Subsequently, everyone arrived outside a small cabin. The items inside were specifically designed for punishing men. Tessa had something to fall back on and she firmly picked up the stun baton. The man walked in and looked in horror at what was inside. It was a brown bear that had turned into a zombie. It was horrible. The screams were heard all over the valley. Doc happened to witness the scene, swallowing hard. Roberta felt that the ideology here was becoming too extreme. She prepared to talk to Addie, advising her to leave, concerned that with time, they might truly be brainwashed. Just then, Helen approached, inviting Addie to go outside. She mentioned a team where the man was from, along with two unfortunate sisters, all needing rescue. Addie gladly accepted, but Roberta immediately intervened, fearing Addie would be assimilated into the community. When Roberta can't stop her, she offers to go herself, but she's doing it to look out for Addie. And outside, Doc ran back shouting that they had to get out of there. The neighborhood was so hostile to men. Before Doc could reveal what he had witnessed, they heard a car starting to leave, Helen heading out for the rescue.
No, Addie doesn't go anywhere without me.
She just did.
Half an hour later, they reached the inevitable path of those people. Addie and another attractive woman popped the hood, waiting for the fish to bite. Sure enough, before long, someone arrived. They had smiles playing on their lips, then immediately feigned the appearance of a helpless, delicate girl whose car had broken down. Unsure of what to do, there were 3 motorbikes, and the man at the head was the boss. His eyes glistened at the sight of a beautiful woman and he said he could help. He didn't mind them seeing the 2 women tied up on his motorbike. Then he signaled his men to get off and take them away by force. Little did he know, they had walked right into the trap.
Hands up, gentlemen!
Wait.
Your little game is over.
Whoa.
Immediately, Roberta and the others emerged with guns, taking positions and leaving no chance for resistance or escape. Helen didn't kill them immediately but tied them to a rope.
Drop your guns.
Oh, I'm not really with them. I was stranded and they helped me
Shut
out.
up. Hold your fire. That ain't happening, sweetheart. Whoa. Hold your fire. Hold your fire. I'm a reasonable man. You see? I'm sure we can come to some kind of an arrangement. Why don't you just tell me what you want?
Let me ask you. These girls with you voluntarily?
Hey, listen to me.
Didn't think so. Ladies?
The lead man continued to speak persuasively, claiming there were valuable items in his car. In his view, in the post-apocalyptic world, there were no enemies as long as there were benefits. However, he had encountered Helen, who harbored a strong hatred for men. Helen handed the gun to Addie, intending for her to administer justice. She requested Addie to shoot just one person, no headshots necessary. It was implicit killing one man and turning him into a zombie would lead to the miserable deaths of the other 2. Addie raised the pistol, but Roberta quickly intervened.
Addie, don't do this. You don't want to get in my way, sister. Remember the cannibal.
Helen brainwashed Addie once again, reminding her of the cannibals who had kidnapped her. As she spoke, a gunshot rang out. Addie shot the man at the edge, wearing a fierce expression on her face. With that, they got on their motorbikes and went back to the community, leaving only those chained up. Suddenly, the deceased man turned into a zombie and lunged at his 2 companions. On the other side, Doc and the others were already packing up. Max saw the returning car from afar. However, the one Addie was on didn't stop. It headed straight for the community. Only Roberta jumped off. Her first words to the 3 were, "We need to leave this place quickly." Doc joined in, mentioning that he also saw the zombie bear. However, Roberta told him it wasn't the main concern. The extreme ideology of the community was the real threat. She glanced at Mac as she spoke. Mac guessed that Addie might be unwilling to leave, but he firmly stated that if Addie didn't go, he wouldn't either. Roberta, feeling helpless, reminded them to prepare to leave. She would try to persuade Addie, but she also warned Mac to be mentally prepared for failure. Inside the community, Helen sat with Addie in a gazebo, wiping off the dust from her hands and consoling her to look forward. She emphasized that men could never be relied upon, recounting how she had killed her own husband and subsequently lived a free and happy life. Helen then invited Addie to stay, away from the conflicts outside. Addie, fortunately, wasn't completely brainwashed. She felt a genuine love for Mac and couldn't bear to leave him. However, Helen's brainwashing skills were formidable, and her persuasive words initially seemed reasonable. Helen said, "I know you love him, dear, but Mac will die someday. Is it not painful to watch him die before your eyes? Or do you want to be the one to show him mercy?" Helen led Addie into that scenario, and Addie couldn't help but shudder after a moment of horror. Ultimately, she agreed to stay. 10 minutes later, when Roberta entered and didn't find Addie, she went to the medical room to call Cassandra to search together. Unbeknownst to them, Addie had already gone outside, where Mac excitedly ran to her. They came to a quiet place. Addie didn't know how to speak at first, but described the community as a paradise. After some hesitation, she finally revealed her decision to stay. This episode closely mirrored real-life situations. Addie, seemingly ready to abandon Mac for a life of pleasure, feigned a distressed expression, saying, "Mac really loves Addie and would throw his life away for her. He begs, as long as our hearts are together, nothing is difficult. You used to be so strong and kind." When Mac criticized Helen as a cult leader brainwashing her, Addie, displeased, turned away and left decisively.
I have to go.
Addie, wait.
Mac, let me go!
Addie.
I'm sorry.
Mac followed her to the door, but he was blocked from entering. Feeling empty about abandoning her former lover, Addie returned to the neighborhood and immediately ran to her room to hide. Roberta and Cassandra saw her and tried to take Addie with them, but no matter how much they shouted, Addie never looked at them. In an absurd turn of events, facing her old comrades who had faced life and death together, Addie chose to ignore them. Strangely, Helen arrived, and Addie willingly opened the door for her. The next few minutes were filled with more brainwashing. Meanwhile, Doc's almost done packing, but there's no sign of Murphy. When he asked, he realized that the guy was still in the tent with the woman, and he couldn't believe it. When Doc opened the tent, they were leisurely watching him.
Up and at 'em!
Serena walked back to the community with a beaming smile. The hours of intimacy left her thoroughly satisfied, and she couldn't help but burst into laughter at the thought. However, suddenly, inside the community, Addie and Helen walked out, and Addie wore a smile on her face. Seeming remarkably serene, Addie gently expressed that she had made up her mind to stay and live with Helen. Cassandra still wanted to advise Addie, but a woman approached, reporting an issue at the main gate that required Helen's attention. Seeing an opportunity, Cassandra and Roberta thought they could finally talk some sense into Addie. However, they underestimated her. No matter how hard they tried to speak, Addie's face remained lightly smiling, as if she were watching fools. This attitude was truly irritating.
I'm home now.
With things having reached this point, they could only stand in place and sigh. After all, they have a deep bond from being together for so long. Outside the gate, the man hadn't died. Judging from the chains on his hands, it was evident that he had likely severed his teammate's right arm to escape. Now, all he wanted was revenge against Helen. Helen was gritting her teeth. She simply wouldn't compromise for a member of the team. In a crucial moment, gunshots rang out. Mac took action, looking indifferently at the women.
5, 4, 3, 2.
As the gate opened, Helen pretended to care and hugged Serena. Roberta and Cassandra were also escorted out, with Addie following behind.
We don't leave each other.
I will always love you, Mac. Goodbye, Mac.
Roberta was furious that Mac had been shot, but given the circumstances, they had no choice but to pull Mac and leave. Addie had become so heartless that there was no point in trying to persuade her any longer. However, once on the car, Mac couldn't accept it. He didn't want to give up and shouted for Doc to stop the car, while Roberta insisted on moving forward. Unexpectedly, Mac jumped out of the moving car, a clear indication of Addie's significance in his heart. Mac climbed to his feet and stumbled back again. He was out of his mind, even pointing a gun at Roberta, who tried to stop him. Helpless, Roberta could only wish him good luck. Soon, gunfire echoed in the valley, urging them to leave quickly. Panel X had no choice but to drive away. As the car slowly departed, a heavy atmosphere lingered. Addie and Mac had made their choices, but somehow, something had soured along the way. Serena, who had been involved with Murphy, stood on the hilltop watching, and the little boy they had brought back with them embarked on the road again, heading to Salt Lake City to find his dad.